Hello, welcome to the Leverton Review, where I review books, movies, podcasts, documentaries, politicians, people, whatever I want. That's the first rule. Second rule is that every review is under 10 minutes, starting from when I start the thing, which is now. Today I'm going to be talking about Glitter, the rock and roll pedophile. And wow. Um, when I was younger and watching hockey games, they usually either ended the game or like there was intermission or something, and it would be like na na rock and roll. That song would play, and I really didn't know who created the song. It was just like some song that was played in sporting events. I never really thought about it until later. I heard that they were banning the song because of the actions of its creator. So, apart from potentially Michael Jackson, and the verdict is still out there, um, this is the most famous pedophile in music history, probably. He was super famous in the UK, and he used that to basically give him access to whoever he wanted, and usually he wanted people who were quite young. And uh, I think sometime in the early 90s there was uh, a woman, a girl at the time, now she's a woman, but a girl who almost had been assaulted, and she went to the police. Her parents went to the police, and the police were like, we don't have enough evidence. And then 20 years later, the big scandal breaks, and then he's charged for that crime too. And it was crazy because if I remember correctly, he was charged with two different crimes and the trials weren't combined. There were two different trials. So the first trial, he's not guilty because there's lack of evidence. Second trial starts, and there so actually first trial was, I think, that one, and second trial was the police, and I'm not sure why they didn't use this as evidence in the first trial, but anyway, police find his computer, and there's a lot of evidence on the computer about child pornography and that. So he gets arrested and charged and convicted for possessing that. So he goes to prison for a few years. He comes out and he's like, well, I made a mistake. I paid my debt to society. I'll just rejoin society. Well, no. He doesn't do that because that's pretty much career death at this point. And he goes to Thailand or Vietnam or something like that, and he's driving around, and I think the Minister of Justice of Vietnam sees that Gary Glitter is in her country, and it's like a newspaper story, and she's like, well, why is there a newspaper story about this tourist? So she reads the newspaper story and discovers that he is a famous pedophile, and he is in her country, presumably looking for girls. So he uh, he basically gets charged in Vietnam with this crime, and he pays, I think, $5,000 or something, which apparently is quite normal in Vietnam. And then he is followed around after and he goes to jail for a year or two in Vietnam, and then he gets out, and he's followed around by the journalists, and the journalists are telling every country where he lands that he is a famous pedophile. So eventually he goes back to the UK, and I think there's some other trial, and I think he died in prison, which is a great end to that story. It's the best possible end to the story. And before doing this review, I was listening to a few Gary Glitter songs to kind of I don't know. See if it was worth it. Is that art worth it? And I'm sorry, but it's not. Like, he probably should never have had a career. And I don't know if that's one of the things, if he just had those predilections before he was famous and being famous made it a lot easier for him. That's probably the case. Or if he was doing those things before and the music, because he targeted his music to younger audiences, right? So maybe it's just a situation where he kind of in the back of his mind knew that if he did this, he would have access to people he wouldn't have had access to if he had been like a plumber or something like that. So, yeah, the documentary is interesting, so you can check that out, but obviously it deals with a lot of sensitive topics, so it's probably not for everyone. So watch it, but with discretion. So I kind of don't want to recommend my son's podcast with this topic, so I won't. But go to other episodes of Leverton on everything, and you'll hear me recommend it. Okay, bye.